chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. I am back in my home studio after a couple of weeks away, and I am so excited to be here with you. We've got a lot to talk about. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, the Blended Podcast, as well as the Blended Pledge. Now, say you're at work and all the lights flicker and then go out. You try to move and bump into something. You turn and bump into something else. You can't work like this. You need to be able to see what's happening. Well, this is how your inventory feels. Fastenal has unique inventory solutions that sends data to the cloud and helps you avoid stockouts while not carrying excess inventory. Don't stay in the dark. Let Fastenal shine a light on the parts and supplies that keep your business running. Go to fastenal.com/LTSC to see how they do it. All right, let's talk about what is happening in Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we've got a brand new Woman in Supply Chain episode with Holly Pierce. And let me tell you, her journey in supply chain is absolutely fascinating. We could have talked about it for hours, I think. She has done supply chain for the circus and Disney on Ice. And so you do not want to miss this particular episode. It's wherever you listen to the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast. You can also find it on letstalksupplychain.com and on our YouTube channel. Now, we have some exciting news. You know, I've been talking about the Secret Society of Supply Chain for a while now, and we have just launched one of the 3 groups that we've got happening under the Secret Society of Supply Chain, and that's the Woman in Supply Chain group. Now, this is a monthly meetup group for women in supply chain, and we only have 6 spots left. In our first group. It's professionally facilitated. You're going to meet once a month. So check out the link, go and join the wait list, and we will be in touch with some information on how you can become a member of this group. Plus, we've got DC Strigola coming up with action items on Friday. Now, if you can't attend live, hit the attend button, and I will definitely send you the recording because you're not going to want to miss this one. Supply chain resiliency, how technology can support decision-making. Big topic. Plus, we've got the new Face of Inclusion Summit. Now, this is all about diversity and inclusion. It's about leadership. This is coming up in September. It's a virtual summit. So go and check that out. Register today. Let's Talk Supply Chain is a big sponsor. Blended Pledge is a big sponsor. We've got a couple of people from the board who are going to be speaking. So we'd love to see you there. And plus, I don't know if you know this, but we have some really cool supply chain merch over at letstalksupplychain.com in our shop. So go and check that out. We've got a lot of different things for the supply chainer in your life, and that's under shop at letstalksupplychain.com. And last but not least, we've got a very big announcement for the Blended Pledge, our first corporate sponsor with an exclusive sponsorship is Bloom Global, and they've just come on board. And so we are going to be helping to send more diverse voices to industry stages with their partnership and their sponsorship as well. So thanks so much to Bloom Global. All right, well, now it's time to bring up our guest for today. Hello, Krenar. How are you doing? You're on mute, so we just need to make sure we take
I'm doing great, Sarah. Thank you.
You've got some thunderstorms happening behind you,
right?
so we're crossing our fingers that everything's going to be okay. But why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Yeah, hi everyone. Sarah, thanks for reminding me. It's really exciting to be here. My name is Krenar Komoni. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Tive. And what we do at Tive, we help companies all over the world increase their visibility of their shipments and understand exactly what's happening with their shipments. What we do is they put these trackers on their shipments and they press a button, put it on the shipment. They know exactly everywhere in the world where the shipments are, independent of carrier, independent of mode of transportation, independent of geography. But on top of that, on top of the accurate location, they also get condition, how hot, how wet, how cold did somebody open the trailer container, all of that in real time.
Well, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later because it's really, really important to a lot of the supply chains. And visibility is a huge, huge topic. I've talked about it with several professionals in supply chain, and everybody's got a different version of what visibility actually means, what we need from visibility. So I'm really excited to get into this particular topic today and talk a little bit more about what you're doing. Now, let's go to the poll that we asked everybody last week. So every Wednesday morning, we do a poll of our community and we
Yeah.
create some conversation about different topics in, well, sometimes leadership, supply chain, but this particular question is end-to-end visibility really achievable? Now, 61% of you said only with multiple systems, 26% of you said one platform should be enough, and 10% of you said not with today's technology. Nar, can you break this down for me? Like, was this a surprise? What did you think about these results?
I thought 90% was going to be out there, but this is pretty good. This is a pretty good result. I think it makes sense. It today, all of those answers make sense, and it also makes sense that it's leaning more towards multiple systems because that's the truth of what's happening on the ground today. You really cannot solve all of visibility with one single system. There's multiple systems that need to be connected to get you complete visibility of what's happening. Even in our case, for instance, if we're putting trackers on a shipment, you can tell it over the road, but in the middle of the ocean, we have to connect to other systems in order to get data on where the vessel is, where the container is, because there's no cellular towers in the middle of the ocean. So the only way you get visibility today is through multiple systems.
So what do you
Now,
think
whether that is going
Go
to
ahead.
converge to that next thing that they answered, which is the one platform
Yeah, I
should
was
be
going to
enough,
ask you.
I don't know. I think this is a type of market like supply chain and logistics where it's not a winner take all market. It's not like Google. It's not like OpenAI in some cases. It's more of very fragmented market. Look at carriers. How many carriers are in the United States? That fragmentation's gonna continue for a long time. And because of that fragmentation, I believe there's going to be multiple systems in play for a long time.
Well, and what do you think about the 10% that says not with today's technology?
So that one is interesting too, because if you fast forward 10 years from now or 20 years from now, what's going to happen is more of assets, whether it's trucks, trailers, vessels, containers, are going to be connected to Internet of Things.
Yeah.
And then the cost of trackers is going to go down even more. So more cargo is going to have trackers on their shipments and IoT products, Internet of Things products on their shipments. So that in today's technology, in today what's available, it's not there yet. We still need to work on more ubiquitous connectivity. The chipsets need to get cheaper. Connectivity needs to get more cost effective. Batteries need to get a little bit more environmentally friendly, but at the same time, capacity of batteries needs to increase. So today's technology is not there yet, but I'm very optimistic that in 5 years to 10 years, it's gonna proliferate throughout the entire supply chain industry.
So everybody's right. The 10%, the 26%, the
That's
61%.
why everybody should go on and say, that's it.
I love these results as well. It also confirmed, because I talk a lot about collaboration being the future of business. So multiple systems, like what you said, we all need to work together to obtain the visibility that everybody is looking for. And like you said, it solves for a lot of challenges in supply chain. And so visibility is critical. And we are going to talk about that in one of the articles today. Now, I want to give a shout out to Kira, Sheik, Elathi, Irgon, Joe, Olamide, and Rosie over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining us today. Just wanted to give you a bit of a shout out. Now, Krenar, give us a bit of a market update. What are you hearing in your world of supply chain from your customers? What kind of questions are they asking? What is really important to them right now?
Right now, what's really important to them, I would say similar to what's important to every single company out there in the market, which we've all in 2020, 2021, there's been like spurts of growth that we had. All companies, I would say startups and also large corporations grew quite a bit. And if you look at the stock market, but going also into 2022, And then as it transitioned into 2023, where the focus has been is how do we grow efficiently? How all these businesses grow more efficiently. And that's also has trickled down to supply chains and logistics and that department. And especially after the last 3 years, as you and I know, the supply chain logistics has been on dinner tables. It's been discussed everywhere. And it's part of our economy now. Every single day we've talked about it, and we keep talking about it. But in order to grow cost efficiently, you have to create what I call operating leverage as a business. As your revenue grows, as you continue to grow, how can you do it without increasing the number of people that you need to hire, the number of costs that you need to incur? That way your revenue and your cost doesn't grow linearly.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, that's what supply chain logistics leaders are trying to focus on. How do we get there? And visibility is a big piece, because instead of doing all the phone calls and check calls that you have to do, instead of hiring a lot of people to figure out where all the shipments are and if shipments are going from point A to B and B to C, you can actually have data that can help you make those decisions, and you can operate with a little bit more leverage. And that's what I'm seeing more and more in the market. The visibility is something that's is very important and is going to continue to be important. But as I say, visibility is just the starting layer. It's the starting piece of the domino. It's the starting part of the staircase. It's like the journey to 1,000 miles starts with a single step. This visibility is that single step where we're still nascent on providing customers with quality data around what's happening in the shipments, so that they can make better decisions and operate with higher leverage as they grow the business. But that's what I'm seeing more and more in the market.
I like that analogy. Now, I remember when I was in logistics operations, walking into the office, sitting down at my desk, and the pile of files that I needed to check on and find out where the shipments were, and then go into my system and update it once I have all the information for every single one of those clients. And some of those consolidated containers had like 20 clients on it. Like, it would take me, I don't know, 3.5 hours just to get through that. And then I had the rest of the paperwork and the day that I had to get through. So it's all music to my ears, especially in my old operations logistics days.
And it's still happening today with some companies. It's
Yeah.
not done yet. It's going to take time.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Now, for anybody in the audience who's watching this today, make sure that you get your visibility questions into the comments, because we have some time with Krenar until about 10:30 today, and we want to make sure that we can answer those questions. Now, let's get to the first article that we're talking about. So this article came out at the beginning of June. So it's a couple of months. But what I wanted to highlight is that the US government is awarding $20 million to make domestic supply chains more resilient. Now, we saw through the pandemic that there were certain products, right? There were certain things that we wanted to move to domestic manufacturing, because we didn't want to be beholden to overseas. One of those was microchips. I think some of those is medications and things like that. But this is quite interesting, right? Because they are making an investment in domestic supply chains in a variety of different ways. And one of the ways is the creation of the National Supply Chain Optimization and Intelligence Network. Now, that's a very big mouthful. I think they have an acronym in there that I don't have at my fingertips, but they're also talking about end-to-end mapping of supply chain. Now, when I read this, I thought this sounds like some of the tech that's already on the market. So, Krenar, when you read this, what did you think about this? I know this is, fairly positive, and visibility is really important, not only to domestic, but international supply chains as well. So talk to me about what you thought about this.
When I read this, it's a really interesting article, and that's an interesting coin what they're doing on supply chain optimization intelligence network. Where it starts here is the understanding of where the suppliers are, so mapping the network of suppliers, what their capacity is on each supplier. So that way, if somebody can produce, I don't know, 20 pallets of toilet paper, and the other one can produce 10,000 pallets of toilet paper, there's a difference between supplier one and supplier two. And that's that part of mapping, that part of capacity, I don't think it's not fully done. And there's some amazing companies like Everstream Analytics, Resolink, and a few others that do this supply type of mapping. And one of the experts in the field is David Schillingford. who's invested a lot of his time in this space. But that's really good that the government's taken this, and also they did the similar thing with freight logistics operations workflow, which is Flow, where we're trying to get data around ports on what's happening with shipments coming in, so that there's no congestion in ports. And the same thing, there's no congestion in supply per se, so that when we need supply, we know exactly which suppliers can support and which suppliers cannot support based on this mapping. And then what happens next, I would say, is even if a supplier can make 10,000 toilet papers and another one can make 20 toilet papers, you still have to move those. And then there's another piece of capacity that's going to be important to analyze, which is and constraint, which is transportation. Today, obviously, the demand is low and supply is quite high. In 2022, 21, it was the reverse. And today it's kind of quite the opposite. But in order for us, the goal, essentially, what we're trying to do, I think, even with this, is we don't want to, the whipsaw effect that we had with COVID.
Yeah.
And it was a big shock to the system. How can we have absorbers in our system so that when that shock kicks in, you don't feel it as much and it actually can bounce and stabilize quicker than we're still feeling those whipsaw effects now, right?
Well, and also the investment
very
is
high.
quite, yeah.
Supply, very high demand to really low demand. And now it's going to get back up and then normalize. But I wish we could have been smoother throughout that process.
That's okay. Next time, right?
That's the whole point.
This was a really big learning curve, I think, for everybody, and especially for the government. I mean, putting in the investment, creating networks like this, understanding the importance of supply chain and what supply chain professionals go through and what they need and what we need as society to keep those supply chains flowing. Thank you so much for that. Now, we're going to be talking about supply chain visibility. Now, this is an article that your team at Tive put together, talking about how visibility is only as strong as its weakest link. I love this article. There's so many great stats. You talk about what exactly is a weakest link and how it can have, how it can create challenges to visibility. But then it also talks about what you need to do to fix those weakest links. So you say in here 77% of supply chain decision makers say that real-time visibility is of critical importance to their supply chain. Now, you just spoke about that in the market update, but the stats in this particular article really back that up with 77%. That's a lot. But then it also says that 25% are only using visibility in practice. So talk to us a little bit about this and what people are realizing about visibility and about are they fixing these weakest links, or do we really need to get on this really quickly so that we can increase that 25%?
Yeah, they have. I'll be direct and definitely say, if you compare visibility where it was in 2018 to where it is in 2023, there's significant amount of progress that's been made. Even if you look at data coming from ELD and telematics, the quality of that data is increased. The availability of that data is increased. The amount of carriers that are connected to GPS platforms has increased drastically, not just in the United States, but also in other areas. So there is improvement. It's not 100%, and I don't think it'll ever be 100%. But there's enough improvement there that we were seeing quite a bit of progress. But as far as the 25%, there's that curve, right, where you have the laggers always sometime in a corporate in any company as far as adapting technology. This is still new a little bit when it comes to even trackers being placed on shipments, also even doing all the integrations that you have to do with carriers and connecting that data so you can provide visibility. For some companies, they're still just getting started on that, trying to understand how they can best use this visibility data so they can make decisions. So I would say, like I mentioned, we're in almost that first step before we get to where we need to get to.
So I have a question about your trackers.
Okay.
Can you paint me a picture of what it looks like? Like, do we put it on the outside of a carton? Are we putting it on the outside of a container? Are we putting it inside a product in the carton? What does that look like? And what's the information that we can get from it?
It always goes inside 99% of the time it goes inside a container or inside of a trailer. Like these ones are not, we're not tracking the container or the trailer itself. We're actually tracking the cargo itself. Whether you load the trailer with strawberries or vacuum cleaners or TVs or solar panels, whatever it is, on the last pallet, or sometimes you want to hide it, you place this tracker and you press a button, put it on a shipment. And this then wakes up and transmits every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour, however you configure it, data around where it is. So you now know the location of your cargo and also its condition. How hot, how wet, how cold did somebody open the trailer? There's a light sensor, there's a humidity sensor, there's a temperature sensor. And the way it transmits this data is connects to cell towers. So that's, if you think of weakest links, that's the weak link, right? If there's no cell towers in a particular area, you don't know where that shipment is.
Right.
So we're as strong as our cellular tower, like ubiquitous cellular connectivity around the globe is. So every technology, I would say, has their weak links. And when it gets in the middle of the ocean, there is no data because there is no cellular connectivity. So we have to rely on where the container is, what vessel it's in, so we can provide that data. But that's how it works.
I think about the air tags that I have in my suitcases now when I'm traveling, because it's very important that my clothes.
Do I have an air tag right here? I gotta have an air tag. Let me see. Yeah, I do. So air tags, these are really cool. Obviously, these are from Apple. There's a difference. Maybe I can explain it just quickly.
Sure.
So these are Bluetooth based. The only way you figure out the location of this tag is if it's next to an iPhone, not an Android, not a Google, not a Samsung, but it has to be an Apple iPhone.
Okay.
And the challenge with this is, if it's in a truck, obviously you're not going to get it because iPhones are not next to the truck when it's being driven. But also there's a lot of privacy concerns, as you know. Like you always get a ping if somebody's tracking you or if somebody's put this in your package by accident. And you won't be able to tap into that ecosystem of Apple because of privacy reasons.
Right.
So
Wow.
It's a little different.
Just a little bit. And it gives us way more data than obviously an AirTag does. I just need to make sure that my suitcase, when we land and I look at my phone and it still says that it's back at my original destination, my stomach kind of sinks. And then it catches up to everything and then it's in the right location. Bayram has a question for us. How can we manage multiple weakest links? Now, your article talks about multiple weakest links and that there's a lot of things that we need to get right before we can really entertain true supply chain visibility. So talk to us about how they can manage that. How can they solve for that?
The only way that I think of as a systems, if you're put a systems engineering hat on, I would say the best way to start solving the weakest list is by looking at the biggest gaps that you have and figure out, start with the largest gap that gives you the biggest return for investment. And then you go down the list and solve them. I wouldn't try and solve them all at once.
Yeah, one at a time. And one of the biggest, weakest links is data that you talk about in this article, communication, manual processes, which is what we talked about earlier when I was saying that I came into a stack of files that I had to go and trace. And so, yeah, solving for those at the same time is obviously not going to work, but taking a look at this article and taking a look at which weakest links that you have within your organization, your operations, and start with one, then go to the next one, talk to your teams internally, I guess, talk to your IT teams as well. And then you're on your way to supply chain visibility, which is what everybody wants, right?
Yes.
All right. So let's get to our last article. So this is actually a video, and I'm going to play it in just a second. But CNBC created a video around frozen food supply chain. Now, it's a $72 billion market, apparently. And in your Tive article, you actually said that $35 billion is lost due to cold chain failures. And so I'm guessing that your trackers are also very essential to frozen food supply chains, for food supply chains, medical supply chains.
Yep.
Because this particular video also says that 13% of all food product is lost due to cold storage supply chain as well. So 13%, $35 billion. It's a very complex supply chain. You've got to manage temperature, But they're talking about how the food market can be at risk if we don't solve for this. So Krenar, talk to us about the frozen food supply chain or the food supply chain and what we need to do to make sure that, we stay on market.
All right. Are you playing a video or just you gonna
I'm just
play
gonna play the video. It's
background?
not. There's no words. I'm
Okay,
just
okay,
playing it.
sounds good. Yeah, the FSMA, Food Safety Modernization Act, that's been for many, many years now in play, and that is increased quite a bit the requirements around when we ship frozen products or even non-frozen products that are perishable. Having the ability to track those shipments from the moment they get placed in a package and then quickly frozen or go through a cold storage and then goes into a truck and then another storage warehouse before it goes into distribution center and before it goes into the retail store, so we can see it. Having a tracker there or some type of temperature logger similar to what we've developed, these tags which we can just slap on next to a package that are very, very cost effective. But now you can trace the temperature and understand exactly what's happening with that shipment is critical. And this is sometimes, like when you buy products at retail stores or buy products that they've gone through and frozen products, you have this, I think as a consumer today, you feel pretty safe when you buy those. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when you buy locally, I'm just giving an example, whether you're buying locally frozen chicken or frozen meat, you don't know how that's been transported, even though it's been locally shipped, even if it's close. So sometimes these long haul shipments, because they've invested so much on processes, they've invested so much on monitoring, they've invested so much on the cold storage, you can almost guarantee that the frozen green peas or the frozen, oh, that's a funny dog, or the frozen chicken you're getting, because they've invested so much on that cold chain, it's going to be very secure. But sometimes even the local market, you don't even know what's happening. So I think what we need to do, the last mile is going to be the next thing to crack on cold chain, and having the ability to monitor those in a cost-effective way. So you as a consumer of the local goods have the feeling that whatever you got at the Walmart, at Costco, at Kroger, at Albertsons, that kind of safety that you get also on the locally delivered food, I think is going to be a great achievement.
Well, thank you.
Something to touch on.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. I apologize for my dogs barking. Somebody just knocked at the door, even though I have a sign that says, "Recording, please don't knock."
On air. Yeah.
So I think
there was no thunderstorms.
So you've got thunderstorms and I've got dogs barking. Anyways, I think the other part of this too is the waste. Right? What Tive can really do in helping the food supply chains and also helping consumers, helping the planet, helping with sustainability goals is reducing the food waste, right? Because they talk about 13% of all food products lost and $35 billion lost because of that as well. And so that's a huge component because people are really looking at sustainability goals. They're looking at buying products from companies that are thinking about these things. And I think working with Tive is really going to help reduce some of that waste too.
Absolutely. And we have a 24/7 monitoring team, which we help companies quite a bit every single day, whether they're shipping berries or whether they're shipping pharmaceuticals. If something's stuck in a tarmac at 80 degrees Fahrenheit for multiple hours, the product's gone. So now you want to be able to, it's okay. Now you want to be able to act immediately. And our monitoring team actually calls the carriers, calls the truck drivers, and actually does something about it. So we can make sure that the waste doesn't happen. Same with in the middle of the road. If berries are above 40, 50 degrees Fahrenheit for a few hours, it's not going to be pretty. So we act immediately, make sure we call the truck driver, make sure we do something about that so that there is no waste in food chains and also in medical chains.
Amazing. Well, Bayram, I see that you have a bunch of questions for Tive, and I am going to tag them in the comments so that they can get back to you. But because I have somebody,
it's okay.
I really apologize for the background noise. This person will not leave my front door, but I'm going to wrap up this show by talking about where we're going to be. So we are going to be at the Inland Distribution Conference in September. We're also going to be at the Woman in Supply Chain Forum in November. Now, Krenar, where can everybody find you? Are you going to be at some events in the fall? And what's the website that they can find you at?
Yeah, tive.com, tive.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Krenar Tive. If you look, I'm sure you'll find me. But we'll be at IFPA or PMA Fresh. It's a really big event coming up here in October, so that's going to be pretty exciting. And you guys can find me live there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for everybody for joining us today. Krenar, I apologize. The audience, I apologize for the background noise. But I will see you all next Tuesday. Thanks, you all. Thanks for joining us today.